It's Chris Kaylin, and I'm back with another episode of Diva Talk, and it is campaign season, and I'm so excited that candidates are stopping by and dropping in on Diva Talk. So today I am here with Clay Middleton, and he is a native Charlestonian, which makes me really happy to say. I feel like that's a unicorn nowadays. Growing up on Bayside Manor, which is now Bridgeview, matriculating through Charleston Catholic, Burke High School, and the Citadel, and receiving so many prestigious military honors, and currently serving as Lieutenant Colonel. That's a lot, right? And Battalion Commander. So with all of these accolades and everything that you're doing and all these things on your plate, how did you find time to run for mayor for the city of Charleston?
Well, you make time for the things that are important. And for me, being able to run for mayor of Charleston really came about through the last few years of just thinking about the direction our city is going in, and having two boys who are 6 and 8 years old, just really thinking about their future in a different way compared to when I graduated Burke and what my peers were doing, not so much leaving because they were ready to leave Charleston, but not wanting to come back.
Right.
Feeling that Charleston is not a place that they could raise a family, could thrive, could be themselves, etc. So I just don't want that for my two boys. My wife and I, we don't want that for them. And she's also from Charleston. So this election is personal to make sure that not only our kids, but the next generation, their generation, are able to truly call Charleston home.
Absolutely. So we're talking about generations of Charlestonians.
Yes.
Now, if you're elected, we're going to speak this into existence.
Yes.
You will make history as the first Black mayor in Charleston, South Carolina. So, do you think that is something? Do you think Charleston is prepared for your leadership?
Well, I think so. And for me, obviously, I can't rub this off.
Right.
But I think when I engage with people, talk about my experience in government and community, certainly in the military, I do think Charleston is ready for bold servant leadership. We have a void of that now in City Hall, and I believe my background, my experience working here in Charleston uniquely puts me in a position to lead.
Yes.
People, listen, money follows great ideas. So as it relates to my leadership, I think people will gravitate toward a leader that would lead, will listen, and really serve the people. Again, you can't serve the people if you don't love the people.
That is true.
So again, this is all personal and what's best not only for our future now, but for a generation yet born.
Absolutely. And we're going to dive into your history and your background just a little bit, but I really want to tackle these issues that is your platform you're running on, and it's a lot of great ones. So issues that you want to take on, from budget, climate, development, smart growth, education, local first, public safety, and small businesses. So as a Charleston native, I'm interested to hear your take on development and smart growth. Literally, when you drive around Charleston, I now call it Crane City. It's cranes all in the air. So like, the buildings are beautiful, but sometimes they're not affordable for the people who live here and the actual renters. So how do you plan to assist with that?
Those are some of the issues that we would talk about in this campaign, and I talk to people as we engage. And I think for the affordability part, listen, a city that's not growing is dying. There's a whole bunch of cities in our country that would love to have the problems that we do. However, we need to grow smartly. We cannot just grow and say yes to every development and not think about infrastructure first. So from an affordability standpoint, for housing and even affordable commercial space, on a housing front, we have to do more as it relates to providing, whether you call it affordable housing, workforce housing, attainable housing. Everyone deserves a decent, safe place to call home.
Absolutely.
Period. So we can get into the minutia of what do you call it and what's affordable and how much you have to make. At the end of the day, some things that we're not doing that I would do, for instance, is have more mixed-use development. When you look at HUD, there's $50 million available for communities that are really doing mixed-use development. That's something that we're not doing here in Charleston, and that is one thing that we would address head on. Being able to apply for the resources to do the planning grant, which you can get up to $500,000 for, and $50 million to actually implement the plan that you laid out. So that's one. Two, when you have individuals that are living in a home now and they are renting, and that homeowner want to sell that home, there's not a first right of refusal for that individual. What if we actually had an ordinance that would make it law for that homeowner for the property owner in this case, you can't just sell your home without offering this to the person that is renting from you.
Right.
That gives that individual an opportunity. Maybe now they're ready to buy versus rent.
Right.
Or there's a trusted nonprofit organization that could acquire that property and keep it affordable, so you are not displacing people, especially if someone found a place that they can live closer to where they work, and especially for our seniors who fall into that same category. So these are practical things that we can do as a city, but you need to have the leadership and the will and the collaborative effort to make those things happen.
And when you break it down like that, it sounds more attainable. And to someone that may not know what mixed-use housing is, what is mixed-use housing?
So this is affordable and market rate housing. So what you have is a stigma as it relates to affordable housing. Well, it's just for poor people,
right,
or for this group of folks. Listen, if you are a teacher, if you're a police officer, a fireman, EMT, a nurse, you qualify as relates to affordable housing based on your income.
Right.
So having this mixed use allows for the same amenities. You go to a hotel, you don't know who's paying what per night.
Right.
You enter through the same way. You have the same amenities that are available. That's what a mixed use development is. And it also addresses some of these infrastructure issues like water and parks, recreation, grocery. It's truly looking at a blighted area and saying, how can we revitalize it, not only for people to come here, but right for those that live here now. So those are some of the things that I get very excited about. And having served on a number of boards and commissions in the city of Charleston through the years when I worked for Congressman Jim Clyburn. So I'm very aware of what we need to do, not so much what we haven't done.
Right.
It's all about what's forward.
Moving forward.
Yes.
Okay, and like I said, as a native of Charleston, this second one made me really happy.
Yeah.
So your local's first platform, it's new, it's refreshing, and with Charleston being the #1 tourist destination, and the main priority seems to be the tourists. So how will you ensure that natives and locals to Charleston have their voices be heard?
Well, I'm from here.
You a come here.
I'm a come here. So I don't have to look in the mirror figuring out who I'm going to serve today.
Right.
As it relates to where we are in our city, Charleston cannot be a destination. Charleston is home for people.
Yeah.
People live here. People work here. People is really what makes Charleston the #1 place to visit and where people want to call home. And so we have to make sure that we do things that are focused on locals, whether that is having local festivals throughout the year, not just during certain seasons,
right,
that are in local communities. These are things that we can do right now. Even how we spend our resources. Are we giving preference to local small businesses? How are we engaging the local community? How are we even planning neighborhoods? Right? You can have a consultant come in and do all the pretty charrettes you want, but talk to the people that live here. Talk to the people that have been here,
yeah,
so you get a sense of the history. I talk to folks who've been here for 10 or 15 years and even less. And they would say, well, what do you think about this, that, and the other? And I said, well, let me give you a little bit of history. I said, we are here because of what happened then.
Right.
So I think that perspective is important for when you are not only making decisions, but when you are engaging people.
And I think a lot of times once decisions are made, then they come back and they survey the people of the community.
Yeah.
Once the decision has been made, so it's just like, are you just doing this as a checklist?
Mm-hmm.
Because you couldn't really care about what we thought because you would have came before you did this. So I love that you feel
and even for that, it is saying, listen, transparency and accountability.
Yes.
Again, I still want to be able to go to church, go and hang out and do what I do now, and not have someone say, they go that joker again, right?
Right.
Only see him at a certain time, only this. No.
Right.
And I don't want to hear from my mama, my grandmama, I don't hear from no one in my family or other folks.
I'm gonna tell you first.
Yeah, to say, hey, listen, you say you forget about it. You forget, and that's just, I don't need that pressure in my life.
Absolutely. It will be a lot of pressure.
That's true.
Okay, so dabbling into your past work. So in 2017, you became the Director of Business Services for the City of Charleston.
Yeah.
So since being in that role, what have you accomplished?
So I left that role in 2019. But when I was the Director of Business Services, there were several things I'm proud of that my team and I did. And one, there was a backlog of business permits being issued. So after hearing from a lot of small business owners about that process and the issues they were having, and my team fielding questions as well, it's like, all right, well, let's just get everyone together and have an open house. And I didn't get a lot of support from the other department heads that touch each of those areas. But nonetheless, my team and I said, all right, that's fine. Let's just go to the people that actually do the work, that are reviewing these applications, that are saying yes or no, or submitting more questions. So we were able to ask those individuals, will you just spend your lunch hour with us so people can come in and have their questions directly answered? And we did that. And then after a few months, that stopped because there was no longer a backlog. But I'm very proud of being able to do that. And it wasn't my idea. Someone on my team said, hey, Clay, what about this? And I said, hey, if it makes sense, let's go with it. There's harder decisions we need to make. This one we could solve at our level, so we did that. The other thing we did at the time, the Women and Minority Business Office was in a separate office. And I felt that it was not really servicing the people that it could by being in a separate office, buried, frankly, into the budget department. So I was able to get that office moved into my office so that we can actually service more people, collaborate more regarding women and minority-owned businesses. Then we also, I felt that it was important that if you're servicing small businesses and neighborhood association, all that fell up under my office. So we also went around and talked to small business owners in their environment. We didn't ask them to come down to City Hall after hours or have them to come on a Saturday, but we went there so that the mayor could see the problem, see how the city really functions and people, the issues that they're having, but more importantly, how we can solve it directly. So I'm glad that is still going on, as well as how we just engage the various neighborhood associations into the process of how you solve problems, how you can truly be heard, etc. So I'm very, very happy of those things that we accomplished while I was there. Some things have continued, others have not. That's fine. That's why we're running for mayor, so we could make sure a whole bunch of things change.
Absolutely, but I just love hearing you talk and just meeting people where they are, and I think that's where the authenticity comes in at. A lot of times when you're in political roles, people, they're afraid to talk to you. They may think that their issues aren't as important to you. So the fact that you're collaborative with your team and you take their ideas and you realize it's literally no I in team, not to be cheesy, but just being boots on ground and lets people know that you actually care. So I'm interested to know your plans to create access to capital for small business owners like myself.
Well, listen, it's important that it's just not access to capital. That's important.
Right.
Access to capital, access to business, and access to the technical assistance that's needed.
Yes.
Because all three of those things are important as mayor, here's some things that we would do. We would actually have a Department of Economic Development in the city of Charleston so that we can provide resources to small business owners and aspiring entrepreneurs. That's something that we do not have now. That's something that we can do as mayor. The other thing is making sure that we use our convening power from a city spending plan. We don't have a comprehensive city buying plan as relates to who needs what and being able to have those individuals purchase those items, various departments and divisions purchase those items locally. There's power in that. We do not even assess, even by our own ordinance, we do not even provide a quarterly report of how we as a city are spending resources on small businesses, let alone local businesses, and let alone people of color. We just do not do those things at all. So that's something that we would do. But I also think one of the critical missing pieces, again, access to capital is important. We could actually de-risk money that a community development financial institution, a CDFI, does for a local small business. I happen to serve on the board of the Climb Fund, which started out in Charleston, and now we're a statewide organization. As a city, if you really want to be serious about providing access to capital and business and the other technical assistance that's needed, then you could simply de-risk whether it's 25%, 50% of lending that's provided to those individuals. Whether it's those that live downtown Charleston, West Ashley, Johns Island, maybe it's a particular zip code area, maybe it's whatever the criteria is, we can figure that part out. But just being able to have that access to capital and having that access to business. Again, we're the number one tourist destination over the past 11 years. In the world, right? So how can we make sure that things that are happening right here in Charleston, as I like to call it, made in Charleston, can be exposed to the entire world? How could people like you not only do what you're doing here in Charleston and throughout the country, but how could we make sure that you and others that want to go into this space, that actually own this space, are marketing your time, talent, and skills throughout the world? These are things that we can do here in Charleston. And I just think we have an opportunity to do something very special. That's why I think people are ready and hungry for such leadership, such vision, but also that passion. Because this is how we move Charleston forward together and create a city, frankly, that works for everyone.
And it's crazy because what you're saying is not like out of this world or it's hard to do, it just needs to be done. And that's the thing, it just needs to be done. Oh, you're right. Okay. And I always tell people, I wish I knew how important local elections were when I was in high school. I feel like if I've known that, we could really control the world, honestly. But how are you authentically engaging with younger voters?
Just going where they are. And not so much talking about my platform, but saying, what matters to you? What's on your mind? How do you feel? And then once we in that kind of conversation, then it changes the game. Because now someone is truly asking them, what do you think? What is on your mind? Not telling you what you want to hear, frankly, and not just going over standard talking points. So for me, it's about going where people are, talking to them. And then when people ask me, well, what was your involvement in politics? And I tell people, it started really at Burke High School because of a school bond referendum that was going to provide Burke High School with a new school, but not a new gym. Now, every other school was going to get a new school and a new gym. So we felt that just didn't make sense. So obviously we couldn't vote, but my students, my peers and I, classmates, and those that were ahead of us, we mobilized our family, teachers, faculty, staff, etc., to say vote no on this, because voting no means that we would not get funded in order for a new bond referendum to take place. And it did, and it passed. And the Burke High School you see today was a result of the students saying vote no on this because it wasn't fair, let alone equitable. So there could be a new bond referendum that will provide a new school and a new gym. That made sense. So that's activism. That is engaging in a process. And that was done by young people. And most movements in the entire world started with a small group of committed young people.
Absolutely. And it's like when you do it as a young student, it's like, wow, I actually made that change.
Yes.
So the world is mine. I really love that. And just that you feed into them, you gave them the power to do so. So yeah, literally you can do anything. All right, so now we are going to get to know Clay Middleton,
All right.
this Charlestonian, and see what he has to say with a little game of this or that. Now, I may judge you for telling your answers. Not All right, this or that, chili beer or chewy?
Oh, chili beer.
Okay, easy one, and it's
Chili
hot
beer,
too.
yeah.
Definitely chili beer right
chili
now.
Chili beer.
Waterfront Park or Charlestown Landing?
For what?
Just to go out, hang out, peruse.
Oh, Waterfront Park.
Okay, 90s R&B or old school funk?
90s R&B.
You can ride in my car.
Yeah.
Hannibal's or Dave's Carryout?
Animals.
Ooh, good one. All right, now I don't want to cause any issues. Clay Middleton Day or your wedding anniversary?
Wedding.
All right, so voting is Tuesday, November 7th, and make sure you are registered to vote 30 days prior to voting, which is again November 7th. And also head to claymiddleton.com to learn more about Clay Middleton, to learn more about his platform. Is there anything else that I need to tell my viewers?
I want to tell people that if you are happy with what you have now, I'm not your person. But if you want more from your mayor, want more from City Hall, we have something to offer. My pledge is very, very simple. It's something that I learned in the Soldiers Creed 23 years ago when I joined the military, where it says I would not leave a fallen comrade behind. And as mayor, I will do everything in my power not to leave any neighborhood, community, or resident behind. Too much is at stake for us to settle for less. And that's why I'm running to be the next mayor.
Absolutely. Well, I think you're going to do well. Good
Thank you.
luck. And thank you for sitting with me.
I appreciate it. Thank you for the opportunity.